It may be the All-Star break, but there's still plenty of questions for the Cleveland Cavaliers to answer as they head into the break in first place in the Eastern Conference, tied for first place in the NBA, plus all the All-Star weekend festivities. How glued to it will you be, particularly with a number of Cavaliers players involved? Spence and I will talk about it coming up next on Courtside with the Cavs on SI. What's going on, Cavs fans? Spencer German, Spencer Davies, Spencer Squared here with you to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers as we get you ready for All-Star Weekend, which Spence is looking very different this year. I know we're going to talk about whether or not we like the new structure, what all this new fanfare sort of means, how glued to it you'll be, especially with DG participating in the three-point contest. We also have some fun superlatives from we call it the first half, but we're beyond the halfway point of the season. But from the first half of the season for the Cavaliers, so some fun stuff planned, but obviously some other things to get to as well. Spence, first and foremost, though, man, how does it feel to be at the All-Star break and get a chance to catch your breath here for a couple of days?
Man, the laundry basket is finally starting to lower down a little bit, lower by little, being able to kind of catch up with a little bit of errands around the house, clean up, have a drink. It's nice. That part's nice, and I know that mentally it's going to be very good for both of us in this situation. So yeah. I'm happy. Get to kind of kick back, watch some of these events happen, and then obviously pick back up with the, like you said, quote unquote, second half of the season next week. But being able to kind of just exhale a little and get ready for this stretch run before the playoffs gets here.
I will say I will miss over the next week or so the buffalo cauliflower from Pearls, though. We're
gonna miss the buffalo cauliflower. We're gonna miss the flour pizza. We're gonna miss a lot of that.
You know what they say, man? Distance makes the heart grow fonder. So when we get back to the arena, it'll be we'll be first in line to, engorge ourselves with food. So I'm looking.
Engorge is a good word. Yes, exactly.
But Spence, I think a good starting place for this conversation, leading into the All-Star break from a Cavaliers standpoint, first place in the East, first place in the NBA after the Thunder lose last night to sort of draw to a tie with each other in terms of records. And we know those two teams split their season series this year. But the Cavaliers look different now. They added DeAndre Hunter a week ago. And, it's funny, we kind of got a chance to see what it looked like to have DeAndre Hunter in the starting lineup sooner than we thought, because his first game he played against Minnesota earlier in the week, he had to start because Max Strus was out. But then quickly Max Strus was reinserted the very next game against Toronto, the last game before the break, and he was brilliant. I think it was 3 of 4 from 3 to open up that first quarter, had an incredible first half, and sort of cemented himself as hey, I'm still here. This is still a role that I can really thrive in. And so I guess it's the conversation everybody obviously is having right now, but is that job in your estimation, Spence, still Max Strus's job to lose? Understanding, I think that I'm assuming Kenny Atkinson is going to, if he does have plans to put DeAndre Hunter in that role, I don't think Hunter's going to start there immediately, even after the break, because I think they're going to kind of give him some time to kind of get acclimated and all that. But understanding that, is the end goal here he's eventually starting, or is it still Max Strus's job? And unless he really drops the ball, it's going to be Hunter coming off the bench, do you think?
Your guess is as good as mine, to be quite honest. I don't think that the starting lineup in this point of the season really matters as much. I will say it is good to get reps, right? You're going to be playing next to Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, and obviously helping cover with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell right next to you when you are in the starting lineup. However, we're gonna be seeing more and more of him in these lineups with Ty Jerome, I'm sure. We're gonna see when Dean Wade and Isaac Okoro come back, whether he's gonna be playing the 3 or the 4, or possibly even the 2, as Kenny Atkinson mentioned. So there's definitely a lot of possibilities, and options are what you want going into the postseason. That's why I think it matters more who closes a game than who starts a game. With that being said, Kobe Altman has addressed that before. when he was talking to us in his post-trade press conference over Zoom. And I kind of asked him that, and he was talking kind of like DeAndre was going to be a starter, and about how the beginning of games are really where it was going to affect him most, because teams are going to try and attack someone like DeAndre Hunter, who's 6'8" and pretty good size, but also has that 7'3" reach. And that's really going to make things difficult for opponents and cause turnovers at the beginning of games and start games out with, momentum by doing that. And then obviously you're going to switch up your defensive coverages. Kenny's talked about how there's multiple ways to attack opposing offenses and to limit them. He's gone from 2-3 zone to man. He's switched. He's gone box and one. He's got all sorts of different approaches on the defensive end that I think will be really fun to watch as we go throughout the rest of the season and see if they actually employ him into the playoffs. But DeAndre Hunter, I think, regardless of whether he's starting or coming off the bench, he's going to be effective. I think in the case of Wednesday, they just wanted some more scoring from the second unit because Ty Jerome was out. And obviously when you don't have like a Karis LeVert around, then you're going to need some kind of pop off the bench to be able to put the ball in the bucket. And he ended up with 18, 19 points off the pine, and it was really efficient. He hit 4 threes. Defensively, he looked really good, and he was relocating too. So I think that they're just experimenting right now. And as I said in my rant when we were talking with Anthony Meglin on the postgame show that night, don't you trust Kenny Atkinson by now? Is there really any reason to question what this guy's methods are?
Yeah, I mean, listen, like I certainly give Kenny the benefit of the doubt. And this conversation for us isn't us, being like, Kenny, you have to do this or you have to do that. I think he's bought himself the leverage to try some things and see what sticks. You mentioned different lineups and what things are going to look like. I'm actually really excited, Spence, to see how he maybe deploys in some packages Dean Wade and DeAndre Hunter together on the floor, because we've been talking so much about like you only had Dean Wade as like your one versatile wing. Now you have two versatile wings, and like in certain matchups, those two guys on the floor together for certain spurts like could really help you, especially knowing how good of a defender Dean Wade has become. And if he has a night where he's like really on shooting, we know he can kind of be up and down and streaky. But if those two are on the floor together and they're both scoring and they're both defending really well, I'm kind of intrigued by that. Obviously, that means you're taking somebody in the core four off the floor, but that's kind of a lineup I'm looking forward to. But yeah, like Kenny certainly has the leeway to sort of try some things, experiment some things. I guess let me ask you this, and this is a conversation we can have, as the second half unfolds, getting closer to the playoffs, obviously. But at what point, like how far out do you think Kenny has to have his like starting lineup sort of settled and his like that next kind of line of rotational guys settled leading into the playoffs to kind of have them in rhythm and have them sort of getting things rolling at the right time of year?
I think you figure that out by mid-March. I think that's a really good benchmark because, you start
so we
the
got
playoffs.
like 3 weeks, essentially.
Yeah,
Three,
start
4
the
weeks.
playoffs, I think April 18th or 19th or something like that is the first week of the playoffs. So that's probably where you're going to be looking the most towards when they're going to play their first postseason game. I think that is really, something that you have to look forward to and seeing how he mixes and matches what things are going to. The guys are also going to start playing more minutes, I think, as we go along. I don't know how large the playoff rotation is going to be. I would assume 9 to 10 guys. I saw a comment the other day, like, why would you change what works? I kind of agree with that, but you also want your best players on the floor at that point of the season too.
That's an interesting thing, Spence, because like I agree with you that like again, in the nature of Kenny Atkinson, I want to assume like he's going to go 9-10 deep, but sometimes like when you're in the thick of those series, like it just doesn't unfold that way because listen, like you're going against the Celtics, keeping Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, like they're keeping those guys out there for 40 plus minutes, and so sometimes you're not going to want to have like a matchup where you bring in whoever off the bench to go up against that starting line. So I just think by nature it's going to be shorter, but we'll see what that looks like. I'm still guessing Kenny at least is going to get to like 8-9 and maybe potentially 10 deep, but I would say probably like the 8-9 range makes sense.
I would say 9. I would say 9 is probably the way you look at it, and it depends on how long and how well teams match up against the rotation and figuring out who's going to go in there. I'm sure there will be some spot minutes for some guys too. Like I could totally see like the Cavs, if they're dragging ass at some point of a game, that he just tosses in Jalen Tyson for like 4 minutes. Like I could totally see that happening, and he's not really part of the playoff rotation, but he's still making an impact. So that was what I think, you can look out for in this last, month and a half, 2 months, to see how it's going to formulate and all that. But I think that they have a really good problem though. They have such a deep team that you have to make these tough decisions, and those are good decisions to have. And I see a bunch of people in the comments, by the way, so thank you so much for
I was going to throw some of these up.
I was going to say we should totally get to some of these because they are supporting us here. So
Ram Bailey says, I really want to see a Mitchell, Strus, Okoro, Hunter, Mobley lineup. I think that's kind of a fun one. Obviously, we have yet to see Okoro back since Hunter obviously has been obtained. He also adds he wants to see a Garland, Jerome, Tyson, Wade, and Allen lineup as well.
The possibilities are crazy.
Yeah.
And think about this too. Like, what if you play Wade at the 5 too in one of these lines? Like Wade at the 5 with Hunter at the 4, and have Strus, Merrill, and then one of Mitchell or Garland, or you have a Jerome in there. Like, there are so many different combinations you can go with.
Well, and that's why like the conversation about like who should be the starting 3 is also kind of interesting, Spence, because like he, theoretically, sometimes in the playoffs you try some different quirky things, right? And maybe there's a game where if Max Strus is playing well, if he's really shooting well in a series from 3, maybe he puts Max Strus in the starting lineup and he looks to Hunter as, I think in today's NBA, guys don't get so caught up in like who's starting and who's not as much anymore. It's about like who's finishing on the floor, I think, at the end of a game. And if Hunter's like, hey, we need you to be a spark off the bench tonight because we just can't count. Throughout this series, we're in game 4 and we're just not getting a lot of guys coming off the bench scoring. And Max is playing so well, like we're going to keep him in the starting lineup. So we need you to come off the bench and be like the guy who's like kind of what Karis LeVert was doing for this team, but like more consistently. Like we need you to do this. He would embrace that role, I think. And so again, to your point, like it's a good problem to have because you can mix and match these lineups and mix and change things around just based off of like what you need at any given time to provide a spark offensively or defensively or whatever it might be. And so, like having Hunter, as much as I think he probably ends up in the starting lineup, it's, it doesn't mean that he has to be in every iteration of the starting lineup either, just based on how a series might unfold come postseason time.
And the best part of this, too, is that DeAndre's totally buying in. Like, he's like, I don't want to come in here and ruffle any feathers. I don't want to stop anybody from what they've already been doing. I didn't even think they needed me. I didn't think that, any of this stuff, and I just want to come in and add what I do and do it to my best of my ability and, help them achieve their goals. Like, that is such a good attitude to have from a guy coming in to a winning situation that he consistently mentioned, too, in his first press conference, that this was about winning and being a winning player and also just helping the team win and their expectation to win. So he's just going to be a part of this and be a big part of it, I think, too, just from an area that was lacking. Seeing some more comments, too, that don't have to really do with DeAndre Hunter about the backup big man position. That's a really good question. They have a couple roster spots open right now. This is going to be something that is going to be hard to address.
Dave Wallencheck threw a couple names out there, and he also mentioned Ben Simmons playing pretty
Bamba.
Good the other night. So I know you've been talking about Mo Bamba for a couple weeks. So
number of weeks. I just think why not? You take a flyer on a guy like that, and he's more of like a modern big type too. There's not many of the classic, burly big men around anymore. Daniel Tice said, "Screw the NBA, I'm going overseas and taking more of an opportunity to play." That's the thing too. Whoever they bring in as a backup big, they're not going to see much playing time, guys. Like they're going to come in and play maybe 8 to 10 minutes. So like this is not like an essential need. What it is though, I do understand the kind of trepidation if Mobley or Allen were to get hurt, then you have to turn to Tristan Thompson and an oft injured Dean Wade. I get those concerns. I would honestly look at the G League too. Like there's definitely some guys in there. I know I saw a bunch of people on Twitter because the Lakers are looking for a big man and everyone's kind of spraying out all these possibilities. Will Magnay from Australia was a name that was out there. So that was interesting. There's different routes you can go with backup big men, but Tristan can step up in there and give you 6 to 8 good minutes. Shoot, he could give you a good 15 to 18 minutes at this point. I don't know if that's what you want necessarily, but it's what you have at the moment. I still think that Mo Bamba would make a lot of sense just considering the timeline and the way that he would fit in, but there's not a whole lot out there, guys. Like if you look at the list of available big, there's not a whole lot of them. You have to wait for buyout market season. You have to wait for people to cut them off. Like that's how it goes kind of right now.
Yeah, the team you're looking at right now is probably the team you're mostly going to have the rest of the season. I think that's probably a good way to look at it. But yeah, like they'll probably add somebody and they'll get some minutes, especially during the regular season, and then it's just kind of like an insurance policy come postseason time because we know they need to fill that role. I also saw this comment from Tom S. He asked, "How many games to lock up the East?" Tom, I was told there'd be no math, so I can't give you
I can give you this. I can give you this: 5 games until they clinch a playoff spot. Can give you that one.
There you
can
go,
give you that
Spence.
one. Yes,
go,
locking up the East. That's hard to do.
Yeah,
because you don't know how the Celtics are going to play, and they're the ones chasing, and then obviously have the Knicks and.
Celtics seem like they're comfortable just kind of like coasting and playing in the big games and then kind of just like, what for the other games, and they'll just end up where they end up. They're very much like the LeBron era Cavs, where they're just like, you know what, we know we'll just turn it on when we need to, and that's all that matters. Like the Cavs are different. They're like, we play hard every night. The Celtics are like, we're the defending champs. We might be the second seed, but everyone's really chasing us. So they kind of have those vibes about them. So I feel pretty confident in saying, like, I don't necessarily think the Celtics are going to catch the Cavs because I think they're just going to kind of like coast through the season and play hard in the big games. And, they'll probably fall in line as the 2 seed behind Cleveland, I would guess. But, it's just kind of interesting how it's unfolding right now. And I do actually think there's an important conversation in there, Spence, down the line here, just about like how the seeding falls, where the Cavs end up. But we'll talk about that at a later date. I do want to ask you, as we start talking about like some superlatives from the first half of the season, what has impressed you most about this team from like a growth standpoint and just how far they've come, and the fact that they had the 15-0 start. They've been able to largely maintain that. Yes, they ended up getting to 10 losses, but it's like they're in most of these games. They're playing really well. They've obviously added as well with what they did at the trade deadline. But as you kind of reflect on what we've seen so far, just what's impressed you most about this team?
Honestly, it's up here. It's their mental. It's the way that they've approached every night. They are a very mature basketball team. And this isn't just in a sense of, all right, we're playing the Hornets or we're, playing a layup team. This is second night of a back-to-back. Are you going to be able to push through tough travel day? Are you going to be able to get through the hard times, even if it's not easy? And I know that sounds kind of weird, but like, it's just the mentality that they've had with Donovan Mitchell being as even-keeled as he is, Kenny Atkinson kind of taking that, and it's kind of going down the line in the locker room and how they're not overreacting to wins and they're not overreacting to losses. They're just kind of like right here, equilibrium. And that's a big factor to have going into the postseason. They know what they need to accomplish. They know how good they are. They don't overly flaunt it, but they are also very confident in themselves. And they have just this sense of responsibility to get the job done. And they're not satisfied after any of these wins. They're very much so able to celebrate in the moment, but they also understand what the goal is at the end of the day, and that's a championship. And they're talking like it too. I think that's another good thing is like they're not shying away from the expectations. They are looking them dead in the eye. And I think that goes for the coaches and the players, which if I was a Cavs fan, I would be very happy about because they're not just okay with being the second tier. They want to be the top tier. And that even starts with Kobe Altman's press conference about that. We want to play past April. Okay, our goal is bigger than this now. And that's why they made this quote-unquote all-in move for DeAndre Hunter to be able to do that. So that's just, I think, an example of how far they've come mentally and also as an organization, just taking that next step to gradually as well, like the way that they've done it year by year by year. But this is really the time where they're trying to hone in and get to the level of a franchise that they know that they can get to.
Yeah, I think that's well said. The mental side of it has been impressive. I also just think I think what's impressed me most is just how flawlessly they've on top of the mental side of it, but how flawlessly they transitioned to everything Kenny Atkinson wanted to do, and it worked so quickly. Like you hear sometimes about when you think about when players change teams, and it can sometimes take some time to get into rhythm. Some of these super teams of old, they'd get together and the year wouldn't go as well, or the first few months they'd sort of get off to a slow start because it just took some time to kind of figure things out. I kind of expected there to be some lulls and to be some time to figure this thing out and get on track. And the fact that they hit the ground running and from day one, they get off to a 15-0 start. They're just rolling through the schedule. They're blowing everybody out and everything's just working so flawlessly. I think that says a lot about Kenny Atkinson and his ability to quickly get these guys up to speed, connect with them, and pull the most out of them. But then the fact that they've been able to maintain that to me is if there's people asking the questions of how serious should we take the Cavs still at this point. First of all, I think you're a little bit crazy, but at the same time, I think the thing that tells you how serious they are is the fact that that start of the season wasn't just a fluke. They've kept that going. Yeah, you get to 10 losses, you're going to lose some along the way. This isn't the 2016 Golden State Warriors, but it's a great team. They've proven that they've passed every test to this point. And the latest test, I think, was how are you going to respond after a couple games where you struggle and some weeks where things weren't really rolling on all cylinders. And as you saw the last couple weeks, they got back on track. They're back to blowing teams out again. They're back to their role players playing an important, part in how they win these games. And so all those things, have kind of bared themselves out. And it's been fun to watch. It really has. And I'm obviously excited for seeing how they continue that in the second half of the season as well.
Yeah. And there's going to be bumps along the way. And obviously Kenny Atkinson doesn't hide the fact that they weren't good against elite teams or not at their best against elite teams, which for coach speak, yes. But when you look on the outside looking in and their record, I think they're 20-6 against teams above 500 or something like that. Or I don't know what the stat was. It was on Twitter or X, but it was really impressive to see how they did play against the better teams. And, the Celtics game the other night, I'm not going to really take that and hold that against them. I think that Evan Mobley just had a really bad game. And, if he has a halfway decent game and that one they win.
The 3 games after that game, Mobley went off for 30 points and was just ridiculous. He clearly to me was just yeah, I just had an off night. But I will say too, Spence, and we talked about it that night. I don't want to say it was a wake up call because I think this team was good regardless. But we felt like that game did sort of highlight. Yeah, you could use a little extra help at the wing because you're kind of just waiting for Dean Wade to come back and be that spark for you against this team. And so I think it fueled them a little bit to understanding Kobe Altman at least. Hey, we got to do something at the deadline, and it did. And now I think everybody's excited about what DeAndre Hunter brings to the table for the rest of the season.
I think that's a two things can be true at the same time thing.
Yeah. Because
the Boston game, if Evan even looks like half of himself in that game, they win. They win, to be honest. And I think that you saw that at full strength and the way that they play, that the game that my favorite was the OKC game at home. In the beginning of January that I thought was a terrific, terrific game. I know they didn't have Chet Holmgren on the other side, and that would change things drastically. But at the same time, that was an Oklahoma City team who was just running roughshod over everybody. They still are, by the way. It's Cleveland and OKC who are on top of each conference. And those are, I think, the top dogs. You do have the Celtics who are defending their crown, and I don't take anything away from them. And you have a lot of teams in the West that I think are trying to, make their mark as well. But I think those would probably be the top 3 that everyone's looking at as far as the championship contending goes. But for the Cavs' sake, I think that a lot of the, lull in play or whatever like that was a little bit overstated. Kenny was there was slippage defensively in the month of January, but January, you look, also was one of the most loaded schedules that they've had all season. And that goes from a travel standpoint and the 5 and 7s that I told you about, the way they had all of these stacked weeks and travel and all that stuff. human wise, like even as a reporter, dude, like I was like drag ass into to the arena sometimes because you're just like, dude, these just keep coming and coming. So like, I understand it from that standpoint, and now you have to put yourself in the shoes of an athlete doing that. Not to say that this isn't like a lavish lifestyle that they live. Like they are obviously NBA players, and they're paid millions of dollars, and they're able to kind of travel and all that stuff. But still, like,
but it's still work.
mentally, it is. It's still mental fatigue. It's physical fatigue, and you add it all into one, and it's a lot of games that are high staked and their schedule was tougher too. So I think that's really what had to do with, like, they had 2 stretches this year where they've had quote unquote concerns. Like they lost 2 out of 3 games, early in the season, and then they lost 5 out of 8. Whoop-de freaking do. Like they are 44 and they are 44 and 10. They are 4 wins off of their total win mark from last season already, and it's the All-Star break.
Yeah, that's pretty insane. That's pretty insane to think about, that they're only 4 off of last year.
Isn't it?
I didn't even remember that. Well, so as we continue looking back at the season that's been so far, and we will talk about All-Star Weekend here in a moment, but Spence and I want to have some fun with some sort of, again, quote unquote, mid-season superlatives. So we'll start, Spence, with the obvious, or maybe the easiest one, which is your MVP from the first half of the season. Don't steal my answer.
I gotta go Darius Garland.
Damn it!
I gotta go Darius Garland.
I was gonna be like, everyone thinks I'm gonna say Donovan Mitchell, and I'll say Darius Garland, and now I should have gone first.
Listen. It's Darius Garland, and then Evan Mobley is a close second. It was, what were we telling you guys before the season started? That this Kenny Atkinson hire was about fostering the growth and development of DG and Ev. And that's exactly what has happened to this point of the season, and I don't see it slowing down. Darius is going out there burying triples. Yeah. He's taking care of the basketball with the Nash dribble. He's making amazing plays for his teammates on the lobs, on the kickouts. He's not afraid to attack. He's trying to get to the line. He's actually looking for contact on both ends of the floor. He's really bought into defense, not just off the ball, but also getting into guys and switching onto bigger players. He's just been able to do so much. And for comparing to what it was last season, it's just been a complete 180.
Yeah.
And that also has to do with, obviously, a lot of the off-court factors that we've talked about before, but that's still really admirable, and I think that deserves a lot of recognition.
Well, I'll say this too with DG, because I was going to make that my answer. Like in the conversation last year about, can you win with 2 undersized guards, and can Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland actually play together and fit together? Everyone was mostly looking at Darius as the weak link. They were like, this is the guy that's the problem. Everyone knows what Donovan Mitchell is. We all trust and love him. And for Darius to now raise his game to a level where he's back to being an all-star, and he's playing so well that, like, in certain moments, he's the one carrying the team. Like, that deserves a ton of credit. And so that's why I was going to make him my answer. But for the fun of the segment, I'll make it Donovan Mitchell. Evan's a great answer, too. I know he actually did get, like, a 4th place MVP vote at this point in the season on, like, ESPN's thing that Tim Bontemps does. So that's kind of cool. But the reason I'm going to go Donovan, though, is not even because of the statistics, which I do think he's leading the team in scoring and all that anyway. For me, it's more so about just like what he means to this team. He's the glue. He is the glue of this team. He is the guy that everyone looks at as like the leader, consensusly star player in this league, all those things. He's as humble as could be about it. But like the setting the tone of like the chemistry with this team, how everything functions, how everything flows, bringing in Kenny Atkinson and the transition to that working so flawlessly. It all just kind of starts with Donovan. And his ability to kind of be just a great leader for this team and lead that charge and be the voice for this group, I think, is why I make him the MVP. Because without him, I don't know if this all flows the same way it does. So it's been awesome to watch him as this kind of like humbled leader in a way that doesn't have to like it's a far cry from like the LeBron James era where like LeBron was always very in your face about things. And Donovan's more so subdued with that. And he like trusts the process and he trusts his teammate. Not that LeBron didn't trust his teammates, but you get what I'm saying. So it's just kind of a cool, different dynamic. And I think Donovan deserves a lot of love for that, obviously. So I'll go with Donovan.
Kenny calls him the Evan Whisperer. Like when they're on the floor together. And they're the ones that have been on the – and listen, like when we saw that combo last year, it didn't look like they were on the same page, or even the year before that. Like, they kind of didn't have as much chemistry as Don and Jared Allen had. Now you've completely flipped who your units are. It's Don with Evan and DG with JA. So I think also getting on the same page with him has been a big deal. And with Evan too, like, you can't say enough about Evan and his offensive
for sure
development and his growth.
Hold on a sec, because I'm going to use Evan for the next one, which is going to be the most improved player.
Okay.
So this is our next sort of superlative here. I'm going to give that to Evan for obvious reasons. You know, you talked about it. Kenny came in bright-eyed and bushy-tailed talking about how he's the key to all this. And for him to take his game to the next level has been fantastic and fun to watch. He's been brilliant. I think we've seen him raise his game clearly. And to me, he's the easy answer for most improved. If you want to give a different one, that's fine. But I think Evan makes a lot of sense for this one.
Yeah, I would definitely say, honestly, it goes to DG and Evan again.
Yeah,
like both of them, to be quite honest. You can't really say anybody on the bench because one, Ty didn't play like at all last year, so you can't really improve on no sample size. And I think DG and Evan make sense in this one too. And again, like, it goes back to the growth and the development of those players alongside Donovan Mitchell, alongside Jared Allen, who is continuing to develop in his own right, still only being 26 years old. So.
For the next one, Spence, I want to do the most important bench player, or like a sixth man, essentially. Sixth man / bench player.
It gives us a chance to gloss over Ty Jerome again. Like, he has been so good off the bench on both ends of the floor, really, and being a catalyst, as I've called him. He's also just been a madman on these three-pointers and these floaters and just the slow step. Like, you can go back into a bunch of our episodes to this point, like, of us saying the same thing over and over and over again to Ty Jerome, because he's so consistent. He's so consistent, and he is just been a godsend for them as far as being a third ball handler and, being able to work with both DG and Donovan, and also in his own right when neither of them are on the floor, which hasn't happened too much, but when neither are on the floor, he's still able to conduct an offense and touch the paint and, do the little wraparound steal and get out into the transition. Like the play the other night, like where, the Cavs hit 2 threes in like 4 seconds against Minnesota. Like, for example, like those are huge momentum shifters, huge, like, just killer plays if you're the other team. And I feel like Ty's behind a lot of those killer plays. I don't know if that's something that I've said on here before, like, just kind of break you, like, it's just, he's done such a good job at that. But I mean, to your point, like, Ty has just been so reliable. Like, he has been a godsend, and they haven't, part of the reason of Karis LeVert being expendable was because
you have Ty Jerome.
Emergence.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that's a testament to the work that Ty's put in.
Yeah. I can't push back on this answer. I think it has to be Ty, partially because, like, the nature of the team right now. Like, I mean, I guess we could have, like, used one of the guys that got traded, like a Niang or Karis, but I just don't.
I got another idea too.
I think Ty Jerome's been more I guess important in terms of, like, the wins and losses. I also think too, like, like Dean Wade, he's been hurt, so I think Ty Jerome's probably the obvious answer for this one, is like a sixth man award. But what were you going to say about you have another idea?
So I had 2 points. I thought it was interesting that Kenny told us that in training camp, even though he was the MVP of September, Kenny thought that Ty would have been on the outside looking in as like the 11th or 12th guy. And he's played so well that he hasn't been able to take him off the floor. And obviously now he's probably the 5th or 6th most important player on the team, if you really want to look at that. And I feel like you could say that about a lot of guys on the squad, but certainly. And then the second point, got to give our flowers to Sam Merrill. Sam, and I'm going to do this for Ziv, who was always...
Go ahead.
No, Ziv's always, telling me, in these messages about how Sam's been such a good defender, and we've obviously noticed that too. Like he's gotten bigger, he's also gotten a little bit stronger, and in the sense just wants to body guys up. Sam is actually top 20 in defensive rating in the NBA, and is one of the top or the top defensive rating stat holder on the Cavs right now. So that's interesting, and he's obviously committed to that end of the floor. And there is a comment from Kenny Atkinson on our YouTube channel, if you look at the post game after the Wolves win, that where he calls him, he's like, "Oh, he's our defensive stopper." And
wait, Kenny commented on our video?
No, not our video.
Oh,
no,
okay.
In the post game press conference, you buffoon.
Oh, I got you. I thought he went and commented on his own press conference. I was like,
now that would be something.
Kenny's watching.
Hey, I hope Kenny's watching. I really do. we see eye to eye on a lot of the hoop talk, man, and I'm sure we can get into that. But he called Sam the defensive stopper, and that's one of the things where you might snicker at it if you're there, or you might laugh at it if you're on Twitter, but the proof is in the pudding, man. It's not just taking charges anymore. He is not being hidden on defense. He's in fact guarding a lot of those tougher assignments, and he's not backing down from it. So that's why I see Sam Merrill in the playoff rotation, if you want me to keep it a buck, because if he's making his shots, and now over the last 9 games, I want to say he's back to 46% shooting from deep. So he's kind of found his groove a little bit in that area. It's going to be hard to keep him out.
Yeah, I like that as an answer. This one maybe is a little redundant because I put down as one of these awards the unsung hero, and you could probably argue Ty Jerome for that, but
it is Ty Jerome. It is absolutely Ty
I have
Jerome. Except he's sung now though.
I have a fun answer though. I think. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I think something was going on with my microphone. I apologize. Oh, I see.
Oh, now you're hot. Now I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We will edit this out in post. Shout out to being live.
Am I too loud?
You're good now. You're good now.
Okay. No. So my unsung hero I think is going to be Jared Allen, because he gets when we were in the Big Three era, as it used to be, everybody always forgot about the third guy, like LeBron, Wade, and then it was Bosh, and then it was LeBron, it was Kyrie, it was Kevin Love who got forgotten. In this iteration of the Cavs, everyone sort of forgets about Jared Allen and how important he is. But he, to me, is like the unsung hero of this team, because he's just out there doing the same thing every night, giving you a double-double and, moseying along. And he's all reliable, and he doesn't really get the praise, but he definitely deserves the praise. And so he's my unsung hero. But I think we've covered pretty much everything with that one. So let's go to the last one for the superlatives, which is the best game of the first half. To me, there's an easy answer here, Spence. I don't know if we can really differentiate on this one, because it was one of the best basketball games I think I've ever watched in my entire life.
Do you want me to say the best game or the best performance?
I mean, we could do both. Because
I'm gonna totally go against the grain here.
Best game has to be the Thunder game, right? I mean, that was the greatest basketball game we've ever watched.
It was an insanely fun and
you're not picking the Thunder game.
Affair. No. So I was thinking about this in a different light, if that's okay. I'm not being contrarian here.
I am open to creativity.
My brother, let me remind you, all those years that the Warriors absolutely kicked the crap out of the Cavs, and they came out and scored 83 against them dudes in the first half when it was just no end in sight. I think they were up by 40 at half in that game in November, I want to say.
Yeah.
That one I think is going to really stick with me, just because it was kind of the start of what you would call the changing of the guard.
That's fair. That's a good way to put it.
Is that a way to put it? Because how many times have you seen
the
Warriors do that?
They whooped their ass so bad that Draymond was on his podcast talking about man, that Cavs team, man, they move the ball. That's a good team right there. That was pretty telling.
And I know that wasn't
lick their wounds.
Yeah, that wasn't the iteration of the Warriors that did that, but the guys, some of the guys that are on that team were a part of that.
The guys that fans hated. I mean, fans hated Steph Curry, Draymond Green for all those years. So they're still around to see it. Steve Kerr was there.
It was just an absolute ass whooping. I wasn't really, my mind wasn't
Do
there.
you think Steve Kerr had a little tear in his eye, like Kenny Atkinson, who worked on his staff, like, oh, you've learned. You learned how to do what I used to do. Congratulations.
Teacher, student?
The Padawan has finally become a Jedi master.
How did I know the Star Wars reference was coming? I was just going to say, this is like Obi-Wan and Anakin, right?
Exactly. But in the end, unfortunately, that didn't end so well. Like, eventually, Obi-Wan still ended up cutting off Anakin's legs. So let's hope the Warriors don't, like, beat the Cavs in the finals or something like that with Jimmy Butler. That'd be bad. But anyway.
That would be bad news. That would be bad news. But can I say something too on the JA stuff you had earlier? I just think it's amazing that Jarrett, you got to understand how in sports egos work. It's not just basketball. You see it all the time in football with wide receivers that don't get their targets. You know, like it can be something that distracts. With this team, with Jarrett Allen could give a damn how many field goal attempts he has. He can give a damn how many times he touches the ball. He's going to do what helps you win. And that's set screens, rebound the basketball, and play cleanup. And I think that he's done phenomenal with that this year. Donovan has spoken at length about how hard that is for someone who could be an all-star, who has been an all-star, to sacrifice like that. And he could easily be a 20-12 guy every night. Instead, he's a 12-12 guy every night.
Yeah.
And that is admirable to do that. And I know that Jarrett doesn't get a whole lot of praise on that front, but he's extremely efficient. He does his job and does what he's asked. And yeah, sometimes he gets beat up. It happens. Sometimes he doesn't have the best showing against some of the bigger centers in the league. That happens. But he's also set out a goal to play all 82 games. And that is really tough if you're a big man in the NBA. So he deserves a lot of praise. He deserves a lot of credit.
Ram Bailey says Jalen Tyson is his unsung hero.
Love it.
Coming in and being a soup. I like that.
I love it. I love it. No, JT's been great at just.
He's been a fun player. Yeah.
Poking the ball around and you know, he's still got to get a little bit better off the dribble, but like he's still got those raw characteristics that make you know that he's going to be a winner and be.
I don't know if he cracks the playoff rotation, but I think like he's put himself in position to because he's playing well and he's doing what he's asked. So
he doesn't crack the playoff rotation, but he's a spot minute guy in the playoffs if they need a spark. That's how I see it. Same with CP. Like give love to CP too. Craig Porter Jr. Yeah. My God, just like over the last week, being ready, staying ready.
He's an unsung hero candidate, I think. So
how many? Yeah. I mean, how many? This is my
Spence,
point.
You're an unsung hero candidate. I mean, come on.
Listen, this is my point, though, Spence. Like we could say all of these positive things about people down the list on this team. That's where I think that this is different. Like you can rely on the depth, and that's what makes them so damn dangerous at this point. And they don't play a one style. They have all kinds of ways to beat you. In both offensively, defensively. You want to play fast pace, you want to slow it down, gotcha. They have so many weapons and combinations where Kenny is just feeling things out and all of a sudden he strikes gold. This is what makes them dangerous. And they're still not done finding those things.
Yeah.
Because now you have DeAndre Hunter as a part of this and you still have guys coming back from injury that we're going to see post All-Star break. So that's what makes them so lethal. It's true.
Well, speaking of the All-Star break, let's get out of here with this. Obviously, a number of Cavaliers are participating this weekend. I was going to ask, first of all, how do you feel about the format? The three different teams or the four different teams, like tournament style. Because I'm intrigued by it. Like basketball is a unique sport in that you can kind of do stuff like this, like split off into teams and had them kind of play in like a tournament style like this. I'm intrigued by it because it's something different and something new. Like I'll tune in. Like you can always get me with like a new gimmick to see if I'll at least like it. But the problem for me, Spence, is like the players have to care. That's the biggest thing. Like if the players don't care, then the fans aren't going to care. But if the players do care, then I think this tournament style could be sort of fun.
It could. So here's the thing. I think that the rising stars are going to try hard like crazy.
Oh, yeah.
I think the rising star side are going to try hard. Here's the thing about God, this is a whole other. I could take a long time on this, Spence.
Well, we don't have the time for that.
All-Star weekend, man. Like to me, it was one of my favorite things growing up. I've covered the event a couple times. Like it's still fun. But for me, it just has become it's become one giant advertisement with a side of basketball. So that's the off-putting part about it. Like Donovan Mitchell talking about the 3-point contest last year and how he's on a neon green court. Like, that's the stuff that kind of turns me on. And then that's why I think also that a lot of the stars, other than just getting hurt, I think that a lot of the stars don't have as much fun with it. And it's more of a fan event, and they don't really... it's less of a fan event and more for the sponsors and the corporation stuff. Like, and I think that's what's really turned them off. That is what I think goes into it. But when you come to the contests and stuff, I think that DG absolutely could win that 3-point contest.
Well, that's where I wanted to end. How much of a shot are you giving them? So I pulled up the Vegas odds. We don't have any sponsors yet on this podcast, so I'm not going to say what sportsbook I'm looking at right now, unless they want to be a sponsor. We're always open. We can be bought.
Yes, please.
But according to this sports book, Darius Garland has the third best odds to win. Actually, I guess it's technically he's tied for third. Damian Lillard is number 1. Buddy Hield is number 2. DG is third, tied with Norman Powell at plus 550. So how much of a shot are you giving Darius Garland to pull it off in the 3-point contest? I like his chances. What
the hell is Dame Lillard's chances at this? Like,
plus
they really have him...
Plus
okay,
300.
I was going to say, I think that it comes down between DG and Dame, to be quite honest.
See, what I think is interesting
I see Cam Johnson as more of a movement shooter. Like,
it's been hard for guys to like win it multiple times. Didn't Dame do it? Steph did it, and then didn't Dame do it 2 years in a row? Or am I wrong about that?
He won it twice. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, so but like I feel like it's been hard for the guys to like continually repeat if they've done it multiple times. So I don't know. Like there's a hunger for DG. Like I think DG has a real shot at trying to win it.
I like DG as a stationary shooter too. Like I'm looking at this list. I'm not seeing a whole lot of stationary shooters. I'm seeing a lot of movement shooters on this list. Like Cam Johnson is a movement shooter.
Honestly,
he's
Tyler
not just
Hero,
a spot up guy.
Tyler Hero is kind of a sneaky good play. Plus 700 for Tyler Hero. I could see him just going off.
All right, now you're just trying to get people to spend money. This isn't fair. Like,
it's not a betting. It's not a betting segment. I just think at plus 700, that's pretty good odds for Tyler Hero. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
What's the worst odds? Who has the worst odds?
Cade Cunningham plus 1,200. He's the only one over 1,000.
Shoot, I would bet that over Tyler Hero.
That's fair.
Yeah, well, Cade's a pull-up jump shooter, right?
Yeah,
I mean, so is Tyler. But like, as far as stationary goes, and DG was working on the racks too at practice this past week with the threes. Hopefully it's not easy the first time you get in. We'll say that. But I'm pulling for DG. I think it comes down to DG versus Dame though.
All right, I like it. I like
no love for the skills competition. Or are we getting there?
I mean, I'm gonna be watching. I'm honestly, I think at this
point Don and Evan are in that, right?
Yeah. No,
okay,
I think at this point in my life, I have become more interested in the skills stuff, or the stuff on Saturday night than I have the actual All-Star game on Sunday. Like I'm more inclined to sit down and watch like 3-point contest, skills competition, just because I think they're fun. Dunk contest has become, I don't know. I think the dunk contest, the easy solution to the dunk contest, Spence, is just the stars do it. Like LeBron never doing the dunk contest is like a crime against humanity. Like if he had just done it once, it would have been like the greatest dunk contest ever. Everyone would have tuned in for it. But so like the dunk contest is lost. The dunk contest has lost its luster for me. But the other stuff on Saturday is intriguing, and I'll probably just leave the dunk contest on because I'll be watching it anyway. But like that, the stuff on Saturday is more important to me than the stuff on Sunday. So I'll watch the skills contest.
I have now shifted my focus to Sunday night over All-Star Saturday, to be quite honest.
Wow.
I just don't think it has the same pizzazz. It goes back to what I was talking about. It's one giant advertisement. There's like 1,000 different companies that are advertising during it. There's not really. There's always these
Daytona 500 on Sunday.
There's always these tweaking of the rules consistently. Just everything changes all the time. The participant, it's just such a mess. I have more fun, honestly, watching the celebrity game that obviously is going to happen on Friday night. Actually tonight, to be quite honest. And the Rising Stars tonight, and whoever wins that gets to advance on Sunday. I think that's fun. I think it's lost its luster, man, and it's not really about the fans as much anymore than it is about the sponsors, and that's what kind of turns me off. And with the dunk contest, I have a theory. I don't want to get in trouble. I think that a lot of these players are so scared of failure on a national stage because of the talking heads and how they've kind of made a bigger deal out of this than it should be. Whereas
Like
if you try something crazy,
like if LeBron like tries a dunk and it fails, like he's just gonna get ripped by Skip Bayless on Monday
correct,
or whatever.
correct. Yes. If
Well,
that,
the nice
I think
thing is,
that
though,
is in the back of their minds. I think
so-
that's in the back of their minds. I think the rule changes are also something that have become annoying, like the differences in the amount of time and how many dunks you get in.
Yeah.
And also, like, I think
I can
all
see
of that
yeah.
goes into the back of their mind. And it just doesn't have a say. Honestly, the last time that it did, I think when I covered it in Chicago, and that was a really fun one with Derrick Jones Jr. I had a blast watching Derrick Jones Jr. and Zach LaVine go at it. But even like in between those years, like there hasn't been much pizzazz. And, you know, a lot of the guys, they also don't want to get hurt, like, which I think is a little bit of a cop out and I think it's more of a mental thing. But yeah, I think once your stars declined it, now you're bringing up, no offense to Mac McClung, who's been working his ass off in the G League, but you bring him up for a third dunk contest. He said he's done after this year. Like, where do you go from here? And this is the other thing too. Everyone's like, oh, no one's creative anymore in the dunk contest. How many freaking dunks can you do anymore? Like what is left that you can try out? Maybe you look at what happened in the halftime show at the Cavs game.
Well, that's why I said you need the stars. Like that's why you need the stars. That or you need to like involve many trampolines and they can like jump with the trampolines and do crazy stuff.
They should do the trampolines.
That would be
Trampolines
fun.
is a good idea.
That will be fun.
But it makes me sad though. It makes me sad though, like because All-Star Saturday used to be my favorite. I still remember to this day, 2005, Josh Smith jumping over the dude on the chair and doing the windmill.
Oh, I remember the Blake Griffin dunks, like all those. Like, those are the best. But Blake
honestly,
Griffin's...
like when I was 7, I remember VC just tearing the house down.
Yeah,
like you know, like
that's true.
Shoot, like there were bad ones in between. Like even though the last dunk was really good, does anyone remember Fred Jones winning the dunk contest in 04? You know, like there are bad years that are in between, but I think it's consistently become pretty much a lull.
You need the stars. That's why you need the stars, because the stars doing some of these crazy dunks would be better than just like no names, essentially.
But Josh Smith wasn't a star back when he did it. J.R. Smith was not a star. Like, yeah. I don't know. Well, a lot of these now are
a Cleveland star. But
it's a lot of G League stuff. It's a lot of rookies that are in these events now, and I just wish there was a little bit more of a love for it. Dude, we should get the Thompson twins in the dunk contest. Come on, man. Like, athletic freaks of nature, man. Like, that's the stuff that I'm thinking about. I don't know.
Bronny and Braun should do it. Bronny and Braun should do it. That'd be fun.
Bronny and Braun.
Surprised they didn't do it. Like, surprised they didn't try to push him into doing it, because it's been all about Bronny and Braun all year. Anyway, I think that's a good place to leave the conversation. However you consume All-Star Weekend, please enjoy yourselves. And as always, we do encourage you to head on over to Cleveland Cavaliers, I should say, on SI for any of our written content, si.com/NBA/Cavaliers. And of course, the Cleveland Cavaliers and SI YouTube channel, where many of you are watching this right now. You can find more content like this, other episodes of the podcast, and any of our post-game conversations, post-game press conferences, all that. And obviously, we're on a little hiatus ourselves this weekend with the All-Star break, but we'll be back next week with plenty more content over there. Also, as Tom S says, hit that like button. Hit the like button.
Shout out Tom S. Thank you, buddy.
Subscribe to the podcast wherever it is you get your podcasts. And we appreciate your support, as always, here with the Courtside with the Cavaliers on SI Podcast. Did you have something else, Spencer, before we get out of here?
Yeah, no, please enjoy our videos. We really appreciate the support. Subscribe, like, comment, and all that stuff. But also, please leave our watermarks on there. And don't just rip our content.
Oh, that's
That'd be great.
Right.
I've had it up to here with the fan accounts that take our stuff, and I think that it's fair for me to have said gripe, because we are the ones that are on the floor doing the work. It's not about us. I get that. Not about clout for me, and it's not about clout for Spence. But at the same time, please do not take our stuff.
You know what the solution?
We do a great amount of work to get that stuff.
You know what the solution is, right? You have to put the watermark somewhere where they can't crop it. Like, put it right below Kenny Atkinson's face, and then they can't crop it. Then it has to be in the video. There you go. I mean, it'll be annoying for people watching on the YouTube channel, but maybe you can fade it out a little bit, but it'll still be there, and you just put it right underneath his chin.
Just put
right here.
Put that shield and those swords just right on top of the whole body.
Or put it like right on his forehead, somewhere where they can't crop it out.
Make it look like he has a tattoo.
Exactly. Put it right where they can't crop it out, and then it's always there. That's the solution. That's my tip
I could
how
go.
to
I
solve
could go
that
another
problem.
20 minutes on this subject, Spence.
I know. Well, we'll maybe save some time for the next episode for you to do that. Chance to kind of reset here leading into next week. But we appreciate you guys stopping by as always.
We do appreciate the support. We appreciate the comments. You guys are
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you so
guys
much.
have been awesome. No, truly. And we're glad we can get some interaction with the show. We'll be back next week with another episode, maybe 2 episodes, potentially, something to lead us into the second half, and then something after they play a couple games. But until then, keep on following along with all things Cleveland Cavaliers with the Cleveland Cavaliers on SI, and of course, Courtside with the Cavs on SI.